the June 7th meeting of the Westborough Planning Board. We have several items on the agenda that I will read first, if I can get my, so everyone else was ready, but not me. Sorry, guys. I forgot to connect my Wi-Fi. All right. So the first item on the agenda is a request for lot releases at Silver Hollow Estates. We have a public hearing for special permit application D Pod 2012-1, 22 South Street, continuation of public hearing and decision for modification to definitive subdivision SP 2021-1 for West Park Drive extension, continuation of the public hearing for site plan review application 2529 Research Drive, continuation of the public hearing for site plan review application 151-155 Oak Street, and discussion of the Village Commons landscaping plan with Farouk Ansari, and finally a master plan implementation committee discussion of committee composition and appointment of members. We're going to probably move that order around a little bit because one of our members will be a little bit late attending his daughter's preschool graduation. And I don't want him to miss the public hearings. Otherwise, he can only miss one public hearing. And so I don't want this to be the one. So that being said, before we start, I would like to recognize that today is Tim Kaler's last meeting. I would like to thank Tim for his service, your insight, your eloquence, your common sense has been a real valuable addition to the board, Tim, and I will certainly miss you tremendously. You've come in with ideas and changes that have really benefited the board, and it's been really an honor to have you on the board, and I will miss you a lot.
Thank you very much.
Does anyone else?
I just wanted to comment that it's been a real pleasure getting to know you with the planning board, and I really will miss you, and I wish you all the best in your new chapter of your life.
Thank you, Hazel.
Yeah, it's only been a few months for me, but no, it's been great, so thank you.
Good wingman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to really thank you, Tim, for coming on the board. It was a pleasure meeting you through Sustainable Westborough the first time, and then have you finally come on the planning board. You have brought a truly different perspective. Environmentalist perspective, but also with a realistic approach. Talking to you about things outside of the planning board. And we have something for you. That's why I need your forwarding address.
Okay.
You're going to want it at your new home because you can't use it.
All right, good. That's good to know, a nice secret.
Yeah, I'm teasing you.
Ahead of time.
But you're going to get it in the mail.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate all your thoughts and comments. I really do. It's been good. I hope that the person that takes the seat will have the taxpayer in mind. That's kind of where I've tried to come here, not having done planning work before, but thinking about both the residential and our commercial taxpayers and the interests of the town more broadly, and how this board can help balance development with the need for, equal fiscal distribution of tax load. So, but I'll sure miss this. I don't leave much, and this feels like I'm leaving work undone. So if it weren't for a nice new future, I would feel differently. But I thank you for your remarks, all of you.
All right, so first item on the agenda then is a request for lot releases from Silver Hollow Estates. My tongue is twisted. Sorry. Steve Rosenfield is here from the developer. Steve, if you want to just come up and address the board.
Thank you. Nice to see everybody again. I'm here today, and Howard Goldman is here via video. He's our attorney for Silver Hollow Estates, and we're requesting 6 additional lots to be released by the town so that we can start building those houses at Silver Hollow. A second part of that is a second request that the impact fee that is due when we release this tranche of lots, we'd like to pay the pro rata share for 6 lots. So put another way, there are 11 lots left of the 26-lot subdivision to be released. So, and when the definitive plan was put through, we owe the town an impact fee based on when those, as soon as the 16th lot is released. So instead of paying the entire impact fee for instead of paying the entire fee for the 11 remaining lots, we'd just like to release 6 more right now and pay that pro rata share.
And how much would that be?
About $92,000.
And the balance due totally?
It's the impact fee is $170,000 flat.
Yeah.
So if you divide into 11 and then multiply it by 6, it's $92,000 and change. And I'm prepared to pay that fee and the lot permit fees today to expedite your decision.
Discussion?
I had one question. I heard, and I don't know where you are on this, that there was going to be some sort of a barrier put at the end. I think it's a barred owl lane looking across to the neighbors to protect from the headlights, I think, coming out. Where are you on that? And do they come before the design review on that, Jim, or how is that? They don't?
No subdivisions have design.
Okay, so anyway, you will come back to us with a plan as to what you're looking to do on that corner?
Yes, the subdivision plan called for planting 61 trees across the street on Mount Pleasant Street, I guess to buffer the headlights.
But yeah,
coming
but I
out.
thought there was something that was going to be on that corner.
There's nothing I'm aware of in the plan except there is a monument, a stone monument, with the name of the development on both entrances.
All right.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I was sort of under
They
the
built
end.
a fence for the
Right.
main road.
Oh, I know that, but I was it's on the second road, not the first road I'm
The one
talking
where
about.
the temporary mailbox is?
I'm talking about the 2 roads that come into it. And what's the name of the second road? Is that Barred Owl, the
Barred
second
Owl.
one? Yeah. I thought there was going to be something on that corner to protect across. It's not. It's just trees on the Mount Pleasant side. That's it.
On his side, on the subdivider side, yes.
Okay, so on the same side as the subdivision. Okay, so they're taking.
So you're thinking on both sides of the entrance? On the downhill side of the entrance, the water is so close to the property line, probably would not be.
I know that was sort of my concern as I was looking at it, and I was wondering whether there was any thought about, because as I drive by, I look at it, and I thought to myself, a large row of trees, I'm wondering how you could keep them living, just because of the narrowness of it, and it's going to be a hard place to keep the landscape alive on that kind of thing. And so I was kind of trying to think about some way that would be attractive that might take care of that kind of thing. And the only thing I could come up with, it was something like the entrance at the Pulte development, which is more of a stone wall type thing around that corner, with the name of the development on it. Now, I don't know whether something like that is possible, but I was thinking that might be a lot more attractive than 16 evergreens on that particular corner. So it was just a thought that I kind of, as I drive by and think about how to make that an attractive entrance as you come up Mount Pleasant to the development. So it's just a thought.
I appreciate those thoughts. What we've done so far, just in the last few weeks, we cleared out and planted. We took out the underbrush and put down loam seed and a few trees at both entrances, so it's cleaned up. The second phase then is what we do in the definitive plan in that area. The other thing that's next is what is the monuments. So I think that's prescribed by the definitive plan. I talked to Jim a couple of weeks ago, and he was open to this idea of when we focus on what we should do in that area that you're talking about, Hazel, we would come back and say, we think we should stick with the plan, or we think there's a better way to mitigate some of the headlights or the sound or to beautify it. But we haven't done that yet. And,
Okay.
we're going to do that with Waterman Design and
Right.
their landscape architect. So
Yeah.
we'll have a properly thought out
Right, it was
idea.
just, as I said, as I drive by it, I'm thinking about, how the streetscape looks. And that's kind of, to me,
What was the
how
last
the
thing?
streetscape looks.
Right,
As you're
right.
driving up.
Yeah, maybe
So-
everybody could just pull the microphones a little closer
Yeah.
for the benefit of the TV audience, too. I think it's hard to.
So I know that wasn't
Here.
appropriate to the motion, but at the same time, I wanted to just find out where you were.
We'll happily
Fine,
keep
Hazel. I think it's
you
a good
informed of our
suggestion.
thinking.
Yeah, and we'll have, Steve, you'll be back in with that.
Yes.
At a future meeting, but while we're only discussing today the mitigation payment, which was originally scheduled to be paid in full prior to the next lot release.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on that.
I was just seeking to find whether there were terms in the definitive decision, not having been
Towards
here at the time.
Towards the end.
So you're asking for relief.
The term was prior to the 16th, so they've had 15 lots released. Prior to the 16th lot release, they would have paid the mitigation payment in full. And he is seeking to pay, prorate it over
Prorate
the
it.
remaining 11 lots.
11 lots.
Remaining 11 lots.
So I would just ask why.
Cash flow, because the development building has taken a little longer than we had thought. So there are gaps in the scheduling of when we close the houses and when we're spending the money to build the houses. So I'm just really trying to husband additional cash. I mean, if you decide you want the whole 170 now, I can do that, but it just helps us a little bit if we're paying the 92,000, the pro rata share instead of the 170. I expect to be back before the end of the year with the additional request to do the remaining 5 lots. So it's really just a business issue.
I'd just make comment that the terms and conditions were clear that full payment was required. Again, sort of the taxpayers and everybody else, that was the agreement. You knew that was the agreement, so I don't see any reason to. I appreciate we were talking about that. Everybody's dealing with a lot of cash flow issues right now, and certainly would not seek to harm a developer and, understand things are taking a lot longer, but I don't know. Now, it's principled, it's a small amount of money, but a big amount of money, so I would just say, I'm always in favor of just sticking with the terms and conditions that were in an agreement when it was granted, unless there's some extenuating reason for relief, and financial management would not be one of them, in my opinion. So I'll just leave it at that. I also,
Tim, can I just make a suggestion then, perhaps? The loss to the town, as far as not having the money, is going to be the interest, which the town would be earning if they had the money, because it would be in an interest-bearing account. So might it possibly be appropriate that the interest that was lost because of the proration be added to what is, will be due, the difference between the interest which they gotten on the full 190 versus the interest that they're only going to get on the 92, the 170, be added as to the final payment, which would then leave the town whole, because the interest is really what the town is losing on this, is only the interest.
I
So
won't speak for the applicant, but I just,
that might be
it's the
a
principle
way
is
to-
just sticking with agreements the way they are. When we get caught up in amending them after the fact, then we involve our professional staff, and that's a perfectly reasonable option, Hazel. But now we get into more discussion, calculation of interest rates, and
Well,
so on and so
that
forth.
could be
So,
worked out with the planning department and with the finance department. I mean, I think that could be worked out, but I was thinking of that as an option, because really the only loss to the town is the interest.
Yeah.
John, do you have any comments?
I don't see way.
John, just pull the mic a little closer.
I don't see either way what, no, I agree with Tim, you know, the fact that it's in the agreement, but that's the way the applicant's speaking of.
The two of you have been here longer,
Yeah.
too. This applicant's
Jim,
really operated in good faith
Right. Jim,
with this board, so
Jim,
I
I'd
have
like to
no
hear your comments
opposition.
too.
So, first of all, I'd like to not get into the very interesting proposal. I wouldn't have thought of it, so that's lots that he's requesting, and the last 5 lots, we may have multiple interests. So I would prefer to the board to decide to accept this suggestion for the
Right, so there's a reason we made it subject, prior to the 16th lot, and that's because we didn't want it to drag out to the end and have basically one lot, hanging out there and, just doing nothing to avoid paying that mitigation for an extended time. But I don't think that's what you're trying to do here. And I understand that costs have gone way up for you since this subdivision was approved, but I would suggest that most of those costs are probably passed on to the buyers in this market. That being said, I would be okay with a pro rata payment for this amount, with the remainder to be paid prior to any future lot release. So
Of course.
not do a pro rata
A one
all the
time.
way, so I don't want you coming back in here for one lot at a time just to avoid paying the remainder. So I think that might be a reasonable compromise, and I do think you've been gone above and beyond to try and keep the neighbors, to accommodate the neighbors with some privacy issues that weren't foreseen at the time of approval, and that was, I think that's appreciated by me personally. So I'd be okay with approving this accommodation just for this round of lot releases. I agree with Jim. Let's not get into the interest. We probably have to get the finance manager involved, and I think we just need to give him an answer tonight. Although I agree that is a creative solution, we'll have to think about that in the future.
Okay, so Mark, let's just be clear. If we give him the 92, in other words, he pays the 92 now for the 6 lots. So then after, on the 7th lot, which would be, 17, 18? I don't know when your next group would be.
It'd be the 19th.
The 19th. So prior to the 19th release, you would give us the balance of the monies?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to be clear for the record exactly what we're talking about.
So now, next question would be, is that a de minimis change? Or do we don't have?
It is a de minimis change.
We don't have to reopen.
But what you need to do is when you vote, and this is why I didn't write a vote, because I didn't know how this was going to go. When you vote, the motion needs to include that, that you have determined that this change does not require a public hearing.
All right, any further discussion? Anybody care to make a motion on this? I think we have a draft on it, so.
We don't.
You don't have a draft on this.
I move that we approve the payment of $92,000 for the release of 6 lots at this time, the balance of which will be due prior to the time of the issuance of the 17th release. Is that correct?
And
So-
also find that this is a de minimis
Right.
change and does not require.
I was getting that. Is it the 17th we're talking about prior to the release of the 17th.
Yeah, we've got,
I think Howard has a question.
okay, Howard, go ahead.
Sorry.
You're muted, Howard.
We can't hear you.
You're muted. No, still can't hear you. Howard, I'm sorry. I don't know if you're muted or not, but he's going to call in.
Yeah.
Let's give him a second. Let's hold off on the motion
Okay.
for a second.
Yeah, I just
and
want to
give
know
Howard a chance.
exact when that second tranche is going to be released, before which.
So if you would like, I'll write out the motion, not knowing how this was going to go. I don't mind writing it out. What you need to do is first, you need to make a finding that the applicant's request is
Is de minimis and does not require.
is within the
reopening
latitude of
public
the
hearing.
original approval, that the change is de minimis and does not require a public hearing.
Okay.
That's number one. Number two, you need to vote to release the 6 lots requested, and I'll need those numbers, those 6 lot numbers. And lastly, you need to know that you're accepting $92,727.27 for the 6 lots as 1/11 of the mitigation fee, the balance to be due upon the release of the next lot. I would just leave it as the next lot.
Okay. Now, do we have to vote separately on the fact that it's de minimis? Is that one motion, and the second motion would be the release?
Let's do the de minimis part first. If you'd like, I can propose a motion and you can just accept it. How's that?
Okay.
I can't make the motion. You have to make
Yeah,
the
that would
motion.
be fine.
So the motion would be to release the 6 lots requested. The applicant will list those numbers. That the board finds that the lot request, the request and the prorated mitigation payment is within the latitude of the original approval, that this change is de minimis to the overall approval, and that the balance of the mitigation will be paid at the next lot release.
Kristen, did you get that?
Howard, did you have comments too before we move forward? Let's see if we can hear you.
All right.
No, we still can't hear you, Howard.
Is he able to call in or type into the
Thought he
chat?
had.
Do you have the lot numbers, Steve?
Yes.
Here's the covenant that they give.
Right.
I think I have the lot numbers too.
Do you have the Form L? The Form L would
He
list
sent
the
you
lot
some
numbers.
forms. Yeah.
So the lot numbers,
Oh, here they are. Here,
They're
I've got
4,
them.
5, 9, 13, and 19. 4, 5, 9, 13, 19.
Well, I got 14 here also.
yeah, 4,
He
5,
said 6
9.
lots.
Sorry,
4,
14.
5, 9, 13, 14, and 19.
Right.
There's also a fee of $100 per lot. That doesn't
Yes.
need to be in your motion. That's not your motion.
All right.
This request tonight is to release 22 lots in total, 6 tonight. So I don't think that's the way we've understood it, Howard. I think you've already had 15 lots released. We're going to release 6 more tonight with the payment of 92, and then the remainder will be released after the balance of that mitigation is paid. At your
That's correct.
request.
It's 21
At your request.
with 5 remaining.
Right, there's a total of 28?
No, there are 26 lots.
26, that leaves 5.
Five,
Okay,
leaves
you have
5.
5 left.
Five.
All
So
right.
Howard, I read your mitigation proposal. I think we're varying, oh, I see, yes, 21 lots, 5 remaining, but not sure that I thought 15 of those were already released, so we don't need those released, Howard.
We just need we just need the 6 that we're talking about tonight.
Today, we're
as far as
requesting
the
6.
motion goes.
That'll get us to 21.
That's correct.
All right, okay, he's nodding his head, so I'm going to assume he's in concurrence. Jim, did you have,
No, that's in agreement with what I said.
okay, do you have a draft then? I know you,
I can write it if you wish.
okay, well, I'm going to try and make a motion then, slightly different than yours,
That's
if
fine.
that's all right. All right. I'll get there, guys. I'd like to make a motion to release lots. You gotta give me the lot
Mark
numbers.
here.
Yeah, here you go.
Here are the lots here. And also, don't forget, it's $100 per lot also on top of that. There's
All right. What was the payment amount again exactly?
$92,727.27 plus $600, plus $100
$100 per
times
lot,
6.
yeah.
The 2 separate checks.
plus the 600.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve the release of lots 4, 5, 9, 13, 14, and 19 shown on a plan entitled Lotting Plan C1.01 and C1.02 prepared for Silver Hollow Estates LLC by Waterman Design, subject to a payment
Just starting.
of $92,727
$727 and 27 cents.
and 27 cents, with the balance of the $170,000 mitigation fee to be paid prior to any future lot releases, and find that this motion does not require.
Is within the
public- is
latitude of the
within the
original
latitude-
approval.
There you go, is within
And
the
does not
latitude of
require
the
an
original
public
approval
hearing.
and does not require a public hearing.
Second that.
All right. Did that get everything we needed?
You did.
I like it better when you draft them.
The rest of yours are drafted.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Comments? No? Okay. Howard, you, just as the attorney for the developer, you heard the motion. Could you just nod your head if you're comfortable with the language? Okay. All right. All those in favor? That's 5-0 in favor, with none opposed. Why don't we just do 4-0? I think he wasn't here for the discussion.
I did tell him what went on, but that's,
Yeah,
yeah, he wasn't here. Okay.
We'll just do 4-0, just to be safe. I don't want any questions, and it's still a majority.
The entire board needs to sign. All 4 of you need to sign that lot release.
Okay, let's distribute that and move on to the next agenda item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I may, can I just hand somebody a check so you have it?
Yeah,
before I
why don't
leave?
you give that to Kristen or
Kristen?
Jim? Yeah.
I'll give it the 2 checks. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
I didn't mention the $100 lot fee, but I think it's understood, right? Yeah.
That's a requirement.
He won't get the lot releases till we have the money.
I think compared to the $92,000, the $100 lot fee
The
is
$600 is de
not going to
minimis.
hold things up, right? All right, next is the, we had on the agenda public hearing. Well, why don't we move past that to the West Park Drive, because there's more people here for that. We'll do the 22 South Street later on, because that's,
I thought that was withdrawn.
right, but we have to vote to
Right.
allow the withdrawal without prejudice. But let's move on to the continuation of the public hearing and decision for the modification to definitive subdivision SP 2021-1 for West Park Drive extension. And we have Mark Veralt here and Dan Feeney. If you could, oh, we need the pen back.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, Jim, I'm going to turn it to you first and just introduce your draft decision, and then we can let the applicant comment and then open it up for questions.
So for the record, this is a continuation of the previous public hearing. I provided the board and the applicant with a draft modification to conditional approval of the definitive subdivision plan for West Park Drive extension. The draft is dated June 7th, 2022, and is intended to allow a modification to the subdivision roadway plan and the relocation of utilities where necessary. The conditions are found in the draft. Before I go through that draft, I just want to note for the record any documents that we have received since the last public hearing. We received a letter from our town engineer, Lisa Elaine, dated today, June 7th, the one-page memo. I hope you all have that in your package. You should. That's all the additional or new correspondence that I have. I don't know if Lisa wishes to speak to her memo at this time, or do you want me to go through the decision, or how would you prefer to do that? Go through the decision? Okay. So the first page of the decision you have in front of you is a description of the plan. The second page continues with the materials that were received in the request for the amendment and the application, and is noted the dates of the revisions of the plan and the date of the application for the modification. At the bottom of page 2 are the findings, which is a further description of the plan. In the middle of page 3, you have a description of the proposed revision or the modification. And I will note the third paragraph under the proposed project. The road will provide access to the existing lots at 2,000, 2,100, 2,200, and 2,300 West Park Drive. There are no new building lots created by the proposed roadway extension. Any new lots would require future approval by the planning board. The road is proposed to be private and only utilized by occupants of the office buildings located within the office park. All other elements of the April 6, 2021 definitive subdivision approval for West Park Drive extension shall remain in effect. The next section describes utilities and how they may need to be relocated. Then come the conditions of approval in the middle of page 4.
You're not going to comment on the redlined addition?
Well, we're going to let the applicant comment, but Jim's going to take us through his draft first. Okay.
Yep.
Is that how you prefer to do it? I don't mind. I can do it either way.
Well, Mark, do you want to address that now? The applicant had suggested some additional language to the proposed project section, paragraph 3. I don't know if that's a new paragraph or just an extension to that paragraph. Has everybody seen that language? Mark, do you have any comments on that?
Yes, it's just to clarify that the way the park is constructed, we could go to full build-out under the MEPA permitting without having to add the access to Flanders Road. And this is just reiterating that. Right, Dan?
Yes, it was discussed at the last planning board hearing, and I think there was general agreement that the subdivision roadway, as approved originally, had one point of access. So this is a second means of access, and it wouldn't require future improvement as long as the build-out did not exceed the original MEPA approved amount.
Okay, so anybody have a question on that proposed language or comments on that?
No, I think comes from our discussion last time with him on this.
Yeah, and I think it's,
So I think it's just a perfectly good clarification, so.
yeah, I think
have
that
no
language is fine in that section. I don't see any,
Yeah, I agree.
anything there. So we can add that if you're comfortable with it, Jim?
Sure, it's just it's a description of a fact, the MIPA permit.
Yeah, and we have attestation from the traffic consultant that, corroborates that statement, so I think I'm fine with it. And that, I believe, is one of the letters that was referenced? Traffic impact.
Yes, Vanessa's letter is referenced at the back of the report, at the back of the decision.
Lisa, did you want to comment on that? Yeah, just come up to the mic, though, so we can hear it.
So I would just advocate to the board that the MIPA decision, it is correct that they only evaluated one way in and didn't look at a possible extension. So, I can't, I'm only guessing, but I don't think that was part of their review at all. So to make the statement that just because they don't mention it doesn't mean it wasn't, it's probably because they didn't think it would happen.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with you on that. I mean, I agree with you on that MAPA probably didn't envision this, but I don't necessarily think that statement that they're requesting to be included there
Okay.
is...
It's just I feel for the town's best interest.
I feel like there may be further red
There
line
are.
changes
Sure.
that we might need to discuss, but that one I'm not sure is really the one that I have any questions about. So if we're okay, let's move on.
Yeah, that reflects what we talked about last time and was the language. I have no opposition at all. That reflects what we agreed.
Right. Okay.
Discussed and deliberated.
All right, so you're on to conditions of approval?
Yes, so we start with the conditions of approval on page 4. Under general, the Westborough Subdivision Rules and Regulations, as amended through November 28 of 2000, shall govern the subdivision and constitute administrative requirements and design standards unless specifically waived herein by the planning board. And as you know, there are waivers at the end of this decision. Number 2, all comments from town boards and commissions as noted in the sections below entitled Comments from Town Boards, Town Departments, and the Public shall be addressed by the applicant to the board's satisfaction in the modified definitive plan construction documents prior to the planning board's endorsement of the modified definitive plans. The planning board always signs the definitive plans before any construction can begin, and the town engineer, the building commissioner, and the planning department review those plans to make sure all the changes were made according to our comments. Number 3, the applicant shall assure that all access and utility easements with associated purposes and restrictions are identified on the modified definitive plans and are acceptable to the planning board. Number 4, the subdivision roadway shall be built in conformance with the plan entitled Definitive Plan West Park Drive Extension in Westborough, dated 11/19/22, revised through 5/12/22, without reading all the dates in between, consisting of 37 plan sheets. The applicant shall respond to all the town engineer's reviews comment noted below. In this approval, all revisions to the definitive plan shall be made by the applicant to the satisfaction of the town engineer prior to endorsement of the plans by the planning board. All plan revision dates shall be placed on the final plans prior to the board's endorsement. Number 6, the applicant shall provide the town with a construction schedule no later than June 14th of 2022, 1 week from today, for the completion of the private elements of this modified definitive subdivision plan. Construction of the private elements of the modified definitive subdivision plan shall commence no later than 6 months following the date of this conditional approval. Completion of the construction of the private elements of this modified definitive plan shall be accomplished no later than 18 months following the date of this conditional approval, and the applicant has proposed adding, except for paving top coat, which shall be accomplished no later than 24 months following the conditional approval.
All right. Questions or comments there then?
I think 24 months is too long, and I really feel very strongly about that, because otherwise we're going to have a traffic light sitting down there. We're going to have a road that nobody can go over. And I think it ought to be in, excuse me, I quite frankly question the fact they should have 18 months following the date of the approval, because I really felt strongly that this project should all be completed at the same time. Otherwise, we have pieces and you can't use the project. So we have a road, a partial road, and then we have a traffic light. And, you know, this all needs to be done without all these timings in between. And I'm really concerned that it won't get completed and we're going to be a year out and we're going to have a traffic light sitting there and nobody can get to it. So I feel strongly that 24 months is entirely too long, and I was not in favor of the 18, actually. If there has to be a reason for the 18, I'm willing to hear an argument on it, but I certainly would not want to extend the paving of the top coat 24 months beyond this approval.
Any other comments from the board?
I just asked the applicant why.
Well, one, the road can be used if there's just binder. I know when we do our own roads and parking lots, we often leave the binder.
That wasn't my question.
Oh, okay.
My question was why you wanted the additional months, not whether it could be driven on or not. That's what Hazel said.
Because I think it's going to end in December, and we wouldn't put the top coat on in December. But we also like to leave the binder to let it settle before we put the top coat down.
Okay.
We do it anyway.
So it's reason for construction quality. Okay.
I think the asphalt plants close in November, so they would have to do top coat by October latest, or they'd have to wait till the spring.
So my feeling on it is, like any of the timeframes in here, we could extend it as a de minimis change if they came in with a rational explanation why they needed more time. So I don't know why we need to anticipate the negative now and, you know, just leave it at the 18 months. To address Hazel's point, this project is 3 times as expensive and 3 times as large as the stoplight, so I would expect it to take longer than the stoplight itself. So I think the 18 months is a reasonable time frame, but I'd like to see the project done by next October, and if it can't be done by then, they can come back in and just ask for more time, and I think we've proven that we'll make reasonable accommodations to the applicant on that. If we haven't proven that by merely taking up this change, then I'm not sure, what else to say. Does engineering or DPW have any comments on that? Or okay. Any response to that?
Yes. The penalty in this agreement is rather severe. We could be on the 1-yard line having spent a couple $1 million, and the town could say, your waivers are gone. And now you have to build a 36-foot wide road according to subdivision standards, which we cannot physically do. So it's a very severe penalty that you have over something that we might not even be default. The Mass Works might be in agreement with it, and if we don't get the top coat down, you can pull the rug out from us. It's there's no self-help, there's no force majeure, there's no as long as we're diligently pursuing language, there's none of that in here.
Look, Mark, we have been reasonable. We both, we have dealt with you in a reasonable way. You have dealt with us in a reasonable way. If you come in and say, look, I couldn't get X, Y, or Z done, I think we're going to be reasonable about that. And I think we have to take some of this on faith a little bit. Our concern at this point is that this project continue to move forward. And I think that's my concern more than anything else, is we've been back and forth on this for quite a number of months now to try to work this out between us so that we have been able to make accommodation to you, which we've done with this revised site plan. So I think you can I think you know that this board, you've worked with it enough. You must know that this board is reasonable when someone comes in and tells us that something can't be done for a specific reason. So I think sometimes perhaps you can take some things on faith, because we've tried to work with you all the way along on this.
So here's my thought. I mean, I don't expect everything to be taken on faith. Because it is a big amount of money being spent here to build the road. I'm not really excited about the top coat sitting there for 6 months being unpaved, but it's a private road being used by the applicant and their tenants, not by the public. I don't necessarily see a safety issue with driving on the binder. It's just maybe occasional flat tire or something, but.
The snowplow person wouldn't like it. The other ones
Right.
are really object.
But you can put the asphalt around the, catch basins.
Yeah.
And paint them orange.
So I guess my feeling is, if, from a peace of mind standpoint, I can live with this. I do feel like we've gone above and beyond Ruth Capital wanted the road. They came to the town and asked us to help facilitate the road. The town bent over backwards to facilitate the road. Applied for a MassWorks grant. And, now we're revising that approval to accommodate Caruth Capital and the applicant because of the, the significant cost of building the original road. So I don't know how far we go on that, but this, to me, I can live with this, the 24 months. If it goes longer than 24 months, then they have to come back in, and then we might have the authority to pull the rug out from under you. But I don't ever see a situation where you would get to the finish line and we would say, oh, here's a technicality, now you have to. I wouldn't support that kind of. I can't ever see myself supporting that kind of maneuver by the town.
They have until December, and they'll know by September whether or not they're going to be able to do it.
Yeah, again, I don't mind leaving that sentence in. I can live with it. It's a private road. It's their tenants that will be suffering, the top coat. There is a definitive end to it. 24 months is longer than I would like, but I'm more concerned about getting the project started.
Will the road still be ADA accessible for other, for the tenants in the park, even if there's not the top coat down?
Well, the B-Walt trail will be in. In fact, the reason we have to put in the binder down is we can't get the curbing and we can't build a B-Walt trail. Oh, the town can't build a B-Walt trail until we get do the road work and get the binder in. But the road is fully functional with binder down.
So Mark, is the scope of work, as you guys lay it out right now, I know you're in the contracting or bid phase, as you discussed last time. So is the concern that the construction schedule in 2023 for this, the scope of effort and work might put you at jeopardy there at the end? Is that the concern, or is it more the the large amount hanging over this?
It's just, plan for the worst type of scenario. You just wouldn't put yourself at risk with a short fuse. And, the world has changed, even getting people to bid and those people getting workers,
So it's uncertain.
I think everybody realizes what's going on out there, and we have to protect ourselves. There isn't even a force majeure provision in here. You know, if anyone can get it done, we can get it done because we're not financing. We have the state. You know, Jim, you know, put a lot of work into this to get it done. We're into it for over $900,000. We're not walking away from this. But, you know, in a year or two, you know, I might not be here. You know, not everyone will, you know, might be here. You won't be, Tim, you know, so,
Yeah.
you know,
So your intent, though, is to move forward with the project
yes,
and get it
absolutely.
done?
Right.
Yeah, so this is worst-case kinds of scenario and protecting, okay?
I mean, as Mark pointed out, this is something we initiated, we wanted.
Yeah.
And, you know, some other people in the park who wanted this, all of a sudden, when it came time to pony up, they're not chipping in. No one's chipping in but us, so.
Yeah.
And the state, you know.
So my feeling is to leave that language in there. I don't think we need to. Okay with it. It's not ideal. I know you're not okay with it.
Top coat is probably the smallest part of this whole project, really, when you think about the cost. And you know, that's a couple of days and they're done, maybe one day.
All right, let's move on then, because we'll leave that language in there now, and when it comes to the final motion, we strongly they could revise it, but, okay, Jim. We're under
Continuing.
Traffic roadway, right?
Number 7,
Oh, right,
the
okay.
planning board reserves the right to hire outside consultants or inspectors as necessary. A reasonable cost for such consultant or inspector shall be borne by the applicant. A deposit account shall be set up with the town accountant as an escrow account with funds usable by the town to pay these escrow costs. That would be for any inspectors necessary to inspect the utility installation or relocation. Traffic and roadway. The existing West Park Drive is a private roadway. The new West Park Drive extension will also be a private roadway. However, where appropriate, the applicant shall provide the planning board with any appropriate easement language as related to the subdivision roadway, including the multi-use trail. This language shall provide the town with rights and restrictions where appropriate within a roadway easement. All private and public easements shall be identified on the definitive plans. All corresponding language to explain the rights and privileges and obligations and restrictions associated with easements shall be placed on the definitive plans. Number 2, the proposed new subdivision roadways and intersection shall be engineered to accommodate emergency and fire apparatus, turning radiuses, including a swept path analysis at the direction of the town fire department and town engineer, and that is included in the definitive plans. Number 3, the applicant shall restrict tractor-trailer trucks from using this new roadway. The applicant shall place signs noting the restriction at the entrance of West Park Drive extension with Flanders Road and along West Park Drive heading to Flanders Road to prevent tractor-trailers from using the West Park Drive extension. Under conformance with MassWorks grant requirements. The applicant shall work with the town to comply with the requirements and fulfill the project components of the MassWorks contract entitled Flanders Road, West Park Drive Extension Intersection, and B-Wall, executed February 1st, 2021 for the town of Westborough, the vendor and customer code. I won't read the code. The applicant shall work with the town to complete all the items required by MassWorks grant. These shall include but not be limited to project design, survey, engineering, bid documents, construction administration, and project closeout. Most of those are already completed. The design, the survey, the engineering, and the bid documents are complete. Conservation Commission approval, obviously they need to get conservation approval wherever there's any wetlands associated. They've already been to the Conservation Commission. If the new plan requires an updated order of conditions, they'll have to receive that as well. Erosion and sediment controls, the wetland resource areas on the site shall be protected. Erosion and sedimentation controls and best management practices shall comply with the erosion measures shown on the definitive plans, and they're required to provide biweekly reports on the condition and the effectiveness of the erosion control measures. Detention basins. The subdivision detention basin shall be designed according to the town of Westborough specifications. They shall include a detention basin maintenance plan as part of the owner's maintenance plan requirement maintained for the life of the basin. The plan shall be approved by the town engineer. If the town engineer deems necessary, the proposed design and maintenance plan shall be submitted to the planning board's designated consultant for review and recommendation prior to the town engineer's approval. Fire prevention, and these are boilerplate. Fire hydrants along the roadway shall be spaced no more than 500 feet apart. Swept path analysis for the fire apparatus shall be performed. Road design shall assure compliance with the town's requirements. Zoning conformance simply says that they have to have a zoning table on the plan and showing all the frontage and dimensional requirements for the existing lots that front on West Park Drive. As-built plans, they have to, prior to completion of the project, provide certified as-built plans submitted to the town, approved by the building and engineering departments. The next section lists comments from town departments and the public. I don't believe we have any public comments, but we do have many from the town departments. Okay, waivers granted with this approval, and this is to allow the driveway to be part of the roadway now. So these are long, and I'd ask that you probably take them all up as we go through them. If you have any questions or concerns, let's address them, but hold your vote to the end because there are 10 waivers. So the first one, the West Park Drive Extension Modified Definitive Subdivision Plan as designed to conform to the requirements stated in the rules and regulations governing the subdivision of land in the town of Westborough, as revised through November 28, 2000, the regulations, to the greatest extent feasible while establishing the safest design for drivers and pedestrians in and around the vicinity. The applicant has requested and the planning board approves the following waivers from the rules and regulations with appropriate regulation sections noted. The granting of these waivers shall not compromise public safety. Number one, a waiver is granted from section Roman numeral 4D1A1. The berm radii at the street intersection shall be a minimum of 50 feet. The reason for the waiver: the proposed berm radii at the intersection shall be created by West Park Drive Extension and Flanders Road and is less than 50 feet on the eastern side of West Park Drive Extension due to the road's proximity to the wetland and an effort to avoid additional impacts to the bordered vegetated wetland. The location of the north side of Flanders Road and to the west of West Park Drive Extension, the proposed berm radii at this intersection is allowed to be less than the required 50 feet. Any question? Number two, a waiver is granted from Roman numeral section 4D1B2. The minimum width of pavement in all proposed streets shall be 36 feet. The proposed width of the paved way shall be allowed to be less than 36-foot minimum where shown on the modified plans. Furthermore, in the areas as shown on the modified plans due to the wetland constraints, the proposed width of pavement for the road is 28 feet wide. This 28-foot wide two-lane road will widen to 33 feet and 3 lanes when approaching the intersection at Flanders Road. Number three, any question on that one first? No? Number three, a waiver is granted from section Roman numeral 5C7. Berm shall be granite vertical curve for the entire length of the roadway unless otherwise approved by the planning board and the Department of Public Works manager. Granite curb shall be in conformance with the Massachusetts Department of Public Works standards and specifications, specification M9.04.1 type VA4. At intersections with existing streets, granite curb shall be extended the distance of the arc at a straight section of 8 feet along the existing pavement. All curbing shall be finished to 6 inches in height. The waiver: the applicant shall use bituminous Cape Cod style berms in lieu of granite for the northern section of the roadway from the existing terminus of West Park Drive to the common property boundary between 2200 West Park Drive and 134 Flanders Road, approximately station 8+0 to station 23.6+62. The southern intersection of the roadway at station 0+0 to station 8+0 will be granite curbing consistent with the regulations. Any questions? Number four, a waiver is granted from section 5, Roman numeral 5D. The subgrade for 5-foot wide sidewalk shall be compacted shaped and rolled. A foundation of not less than 6 inches of gravel conforming to the requirements for roadway base shall be placed on the subgrade and rolled to a grade of 3 inches below finished top of walk. The gravel base shall be increased to 12 inches at driveways, 1 2-inch and 1 1-inch compacted layer, each of bottom to top respectively. Bituminous concrete shall be placed and thoroughly rolled on the graded gravel foundation. The proposed multi-use path is designed to double as a sidewalk and will be 8 feet wide and 4 inches thick of stone dust. Any question on that waiver? Number 5, a waiver is granted from the town of Westborough DPW design arterial street roadway typical section. The figure in this section displays the required symmetry for the roadways. The waiver. The proposed pavement for the traveled way is not coincidental with the center line of the proposed right-of-way, since it has been created with a smaller paved driving surface without a paved sidewalk. A section of the roadway is a boulevard-style design, which differs from the road cross-section. Any question on that waiver? Number 6, a waiver is granted from Roman numeral 4B1A.13. A tangent at least 150 feet in length shall separate all curves on all streets except where at least one radii is 500 feet or more, or where the radius or curvature of both the curb is in excess of 2 times the minimum specified elsewhere. This term is an attempt to eliminate S-curves. The reason for the waiver: the existing driveway for 2200 West Park Drive has horizontal curves less than 500 feet in radius that are not separated by a tangent section of 100 feet. The existing driveway layout, serving as a section of the approved modified definitive plans, is allowed to remain. Any question? Number 7, a waiver is granted from section Roman numeral 4B1.A.6. The minimum centerline radii of curved streets shall be 200 feet. Greater radii may be required for major streets. The waiver: the centerline radius along a portion of the proposed roadway is less than the required minimum centerline radii of 200 feet. This condition shall be allowed as shown on the modified definitive plans. Any question? Number 8, a waiver is granted from Roman numeral section 5.1.2. Manholes shall be constructed at the end of each line, catch basin connections at changes in grade, size, and alignment, and shall not exceed a spacing of 300 feet. The waiver: one set of catch basins, as shown on the modified definitive plan, shall be allowed to exceed 300 feet spanning requirement by approximately 10% to direct as much pavement into the basin as possible. That means runoff from pavement. Any question? Number 9 is a blanket waiver. The existing number 2200 West Park Drive driveway that will be utilized as part of the subdivision roadway as shown on the modified definitive plans, approximate station 1200 plus 0 through the existing West Park Drive cul-de-sac, was not constructed to subdivision roadway standards for materials, pavement thickness, utility design, landscaping, or lighting standards. Section Roman numeral 5 of these regulations. This condition shall be allowed to remain for the portion of the referenced roadway. That refers to the existing driveway, and it's just an acknowledgement that the driveway was not built to roadway standards. Number 10, and this is proposed by the applicant, so this is an addition. In consideration of the improvements described herein, which will also benefit the community and the town of Westborough, the town of Westborough shall not require or condition any further improvements, sidewalks, traffic lights, signals, studies, etc., or any other so-called linkage related to West Park Drive or in the area of West Park Drive, as long as the total square footage of the finished Westborough Office Park development is less than 1,730,643 square feet. The MIPA approved capacity In addition, as long as the full build is less than the MIPA approved capacity, the original road and site plan approved on April 6, 2021, which was the original plan, shall not be required. The town of Westborough recognizes the cost of construction and improvements incurred by the applicant represent mitigation for future development in and of itself, and that the proposed improvements are a benefit to the overall community. Any questions?
Yeah, Jim, how is this a waiver?
So this basically gives them a blanket that they would not have to comply to future roadway standards as shown on the original plan.
Right, but what are we waiving? Is there a specific?
There's no section cited.
I can't support this language, Mark. I don't think we have the authority as a board to govern future decisions by other boards. Like, what if you went in for a variance? How would the ZBA listen to this? And I mean, we don't have the authority to tell them what to do. I can't see how we can put this into a decision. It doesn't make. Anybody else have comments?
I agree. I don't think it's something that we can agree to.
I mean, I understand the intent, Mark. Believe me, I don't want you to feel like, we're going to turn around next time you come in and make you do the road back the way it was, because, I don't feel that way. I mean, I think but I just can't see how this board can make that kind of promise to you. Right. I just don't think we have the authority to do that.
Well, there are two components to this, and one of them is in reference to the conditions of approval and the comments from the town boards, and one from the building commissioner. There were a couple items in there. The one item that we want to clarify is if we achieve full build, that we have to, build the road as originally proposed. The April 6th. So we're saying as long as we don't exceed that, just to make it clear, as long as we don't exceed full build, as long as we don't exceed what's already permitted, that we won't have to build the road as you originally proposed.
I completely understand.
So that one's pretty clear, right?
Well, I completely understand what you're asking for, but I don't know how we can make that promise to you. First of all, I mean, it's impossible for us to say, well, to make a decision like that now and bind future boards that may not even be composed of the same individuals. Well, we just don't have that authority.
The thing is that legally, if you look, I mean, my feeling is that you're covered legally without us giving you this condition, in the sense that if you exceed what you've been granted for the office park, you would have to come back to the planning board to make for any changes that would be required. Prior to that time, you're covered by the original site plan, the original MIPA plans, as to how much you can build out that particular park. Is that correct?
No, I don't agree. And we can take an example, let's say, with the Mass General Hospital. When they came in, they were asked to provide, I don't know, what was it, $150,000 towards, I think it was the intersection of Flanders Road and East Main Street. And that money would go towards a light or study, and that if the town didn't do that, then they could use the money for something else. And that's the kind of thing that we're saying, we're basically paying it forward. We're doing the mitigation now. This road helps us, but it helps a lot of people. It reduces a lot of traffic on Route 9. That's why the Mass DOT liked our proposal. It's one of the reasons MassWorks subsidized it. It's going to provide traffic calming on Flanders Road.
But Mark,
we're going to put in the bike trail. So we're paying forward the linkage that.
But Mark, if somebody comes in for a site plan approval, unreasonable or onerous, they have recourse on that. you can file an appeal of the decision. I mean, we've seen that in other towns recently.
But that's not how it works. The reason we agree to all these things is time is of the essence. I mean, we came take Olympus, for example. We were going to build a 225,000-foot building.
Yeah, but you didn't ask for this. No, I mean,
you know.
Mark,
you didn't ask when you originally came in for the road.
Right.
You never once brought up the concept that, oh, if we build this road, you're not going to ask us for anything else in the future.
You're correct.
Right.
But now this road doesn't.
And now we're saving, by allowing this change, you're saving a lot of money, and now you want us to, on top of that, give you some type of blanket amnesty that we just don't have the authority to give. I don't know any way that we can put a clause like that in here and have it be binding. It's unrealistic. That last sentence, the town of Westborough recognizes the cost of constructing the improvements. That's a separate issue as far as represent mitigation for future development, but
Is it impossible for someone to
Let me
pay-
ask you this, right? If you go over the 1.7 million and you come in with a project to go to 2 million square feet, right? And the board says, well, you don't need a road, but now, we have the authority to ask for a road, right?
That's true.
And your traffic consultant says, no, we don't need to improve the road because even with the 2 million square feet, we're fine. And yet the planning board or whoever you go to says, well, you're over the 1.7, so we're going to make you improve the road.
Which you can do.
You would, I could, but if it's not a reasonable request, you would object to it then, right?
The commercial world is different than the residential world. Residential world has all the time. One of the reasons that the residential rates are going up and commercial are going down is because the commercial is very cyclical. When you have someone that needs to be in 12 months or 18 months and you can't get them in, you lose the deal. Whereas with a home in a subdivision, you just build it and someone else will buy it. It doesn't work that way in commercial.
We changed the zoning from special permit to site plan just to expedite that kind of thing. I mean, everything the town has done over the past 5 years, changing open space requirements, allowing detention basins to raising the height and lowering open space. Again, how...
And that's why we landed Olympus.
Yeah, but I don't think that...
To predict, to hold a future board...
Can't we pay the linkage forward? Can't we settle this now? This project doesn't make sense anymore. I don't know if you realize that or what's going on in the office world, but if we could get our money back right now for Westborough Office Park, we would gladly do that. I mean, 134 Flanders Road, the abutter on this project, they just sold their property last week for $6.1 million, $106 a foot. It's just a little more than they paid $5.75 million 6 years ago. I think it's 6% more than, and they're lucky because the building is pretty full. And they were able to sell it.
Right.
I mean, that building cost $250,000.
So you applied for this. We didn't come and ask you.
Things have changed.
Okay.
COVID, inflation.
I don't understand what you're asking me, though.
They can't.
All right, this is not appropriate language to be in this document, I have to say. This is not the kind of language that should be in a site plan as far as the amendment that we're trying to deal with. We don't talk about consideration, one versus the other. Consideration varies. What consideration there is to the town, somebody else may look at this later and say, was it sufficient consideration? Who knows? I don't want to get into something like that because I don't think this is appropriate language to appear in this document. I also feel very strongly that this came up after the fact when we thought we had an agreement with you as to how we were going to deal with this to help you out because of the cost, additional cost you were going to incur because of the cost of materials and things that were being done. So this originally, as far as I was concerned, was a brand new concern or thing that you came up with after the fact. And I've been concerned about that from the beginning. I think, you know, at this point, we've agreed that if you overbuild or go outside the building envelope, the AMIPA, that any changes then you would have to come back, and who knows what's going to happen or what needs to be changed at that time. It's going to depend on what regulations there are. We have no way of knowing whether there'll be changes in regulations which might affect that if you go over the MIPA building. So there's no possible way, as far as I'm concerned, I don't feel that this board can accept this language in this document.
Okay. Any other comments, Tim?
Yeah, I would just say, Mr. Chair, you said what waiver are we granting here to the planner? And number 10 comes in. The rest of it is specific language to waive specific provisions in zoning. And this is just added. So I would just say, even if this board were to support this language at this time, you know, we've had this discussion before. I would not, until a town council had reviewed this, I wouldn't be comfortable. This is like anything could be written in to this. So I think it's, you know, the substance of the request is, you know, not strong, and the process here in this, by inserting it in this document at this time is.
But you understand the intent. So when we come in here, we want to build 2,300, we're not made to pay $200,000 for some intersection that's never going to go in.
I think the narrative is very clear, Mark, and I understand the intent, but it's not suitable in this document, and a lawyer would have to read it. This is a legal decision by this board, and I think it speaks, when you talk about the town of Westborough, we don't sit here and speak for the town of Westborough. So to vote to agree on this is, you know, is almost borders on ridiculous. I don't know why you would put this narrative in here. It's a non-technical, non-specific clause that doesn't even ask for a waiver of anything.
Yeah, I don't even think it would be a waiver. It would be fine.
But when the developers, you know, when we're hit up for something, that's not a rule that's in the town either. That's not a law. That's not a law. That's not in the code. It's just something that it's just an extraction of, you know, of just getting additional fees out of us or linkage. And we're saying this is a great benefit to not only us, but to the town. And we would like, you know, to the extent that it's linkage, if there's some code or zoning or whatever, yeah, we have to comply with that. But if it's, hey, when we come before the board, next time we want to build a building, and you want another $150,000 for the intersection of East Main Street and Flanders Road, or, you know, a perfect example is Conrail, right? At Walk-Up Drive and Flanders Road, and look how much money you got for them for a traffic signal there, and not $1 was spent on a traffic signal.
Well, you have by right development. We included that within the scope with this MIPA capacity. So, you know, that's it. We discussed this. We came to an agreement last meeting. We're happy to include that in the scope. This board expresses no interest in additional mitigation when you build out to that, and you're looking for something beyond that. So I don't think it's necessary either.
I just can't imagine any scenario where a future board would look at that and say, oh, well, we're going to make our decisions based upon this language. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't see how we can include it. And anybody else?
I'm okay with 1 through 9, but I will not vote for 10.
It's not a waiver, it's a finding.
Exactly.
And it's not a finding I would agree with. And I couldn't support it. You know, I think we've talked enough about it. I think we should move forward without that language.
Yeah.
So other than waiving, which we're not asking for, any type of rules and regulations that the town has, but there's no way that the board can waive not being,
This is not Marcus.
add linkage that's just, you know, trying to get more out of us later on, because this we're saying if we go ahead with this is
Mark,
it. We're not.
This is not a waiver. I mean, the document that we're trying to finish tonight is the amended site plan approval with certain waivers. This is not a waiver, so it's not appropriate in this document anyway, is my feeling, and I think it should not, legally, I
So
don't
is
see
it
how
because
it
it's
could
in the
be
waiver
done.
section or the general concept of
shouldn't be
it?
in the document at all.
entire concept is not, we can't put that into a decision, Mark. We don't have the authority to put that into a decision.
But you have the authority to ask for it when we're here, right? And hold up a project and have it die if we don't pay
We're not
the
asking
linkage.
for linkage
Mark,
in this
no,
project.
let's stop for a second. You're complaining about something that hasn't happened yet, okay? What does it have to do with what we're discussing, which is approving a change to the site, to the roadway? What does that have to do with future mitigation?
Because it doesn't make sense anymore, and we're justifying the cost of this by saying, well, at least we won't be hit up next time we try and add a lot for, Mass General Hospital is a perfect example. That's a lot already there and done, and the road was already in, and the traffic was already accounted for, and yet the board asked for $150,000 for them to improve for a light at the end of Flanders Road that I don't think, except for maybe 2 people on all of Flanders Road, they probably wouldn't want that light to go in because then it would become a cut-through. But that's the type of thing, the same thing with Conrail. So we're just saying we're paying our linkage, we're doing our good deed, and
So
now-
kind of like Olympus, where they had to pay all that mitigation? I'm confused. Was there mitigation at Olympus, Mark?
no, there wasn't.
No, there wasn't, right? Because it was a reasonable project and it was supported by the town, and nobody asked for mitigation. So you're pointing to all the negative things, but you don't give the town any consideration for all the effort we've made to work with you and to help you and to make your properties more marketable. We've changed the zoning, we've changed it to site plan instead of special permit, and now you're accusing us of doing something on a future project that we haven't done yet and that we don't have the authority to do for you. So I'm just going to move this forward without that language, and we're going to talk about whether or not the roadway design is going to be approved or not. Not about future mitigation or linkage, which is not legal. And if you feel that something we asked for isn't legal, then you have recourse at that time, but not now. We can't give it to you now, so let's just move on. Jim, go ahead.
I have a question to the board. Back to the project schedule, just to be clear. Condition number 6, which is dealing with the top course of the road not being accomplished no later than 24 months following.
I'm sorry, you're looking at waiver number 6?
No, I'm looking at condition number 6.
Condition number 6.
Yeah, we discussed the project schedule.
Yeah, we
and
said
the
we were going to
completion
leave
of the
that
roadway.
language in there,
Okay,
the 24 months.
okay.
All right, and
That's
now,
in, and this is struck. This
so basically,
10.
the redlined version will be the final version with the exception of clause number 10 under the waivers. That will be struck. Everybody understand that?
Yep.
It's a public hearing. Is there anybody here from the public that wishes to address this? Any further comments from town departments or the board? Anybody want to make a motion on this? I'm sorry.
You got to close the public hearing first.
Yeah, well, let's make a motion to that effect.
I move that we close the public hearing on, what are we on? On site plan approval for, is it 20, which one are we using? Oh, I'm sorry, continuation of close the public hearing and for modification of a definitive subdivision site plan 2021-1 for West Park Drive extensions.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor of closing the public hearing? That's 5-0.
You want a second motion?
Sure.
swing at this. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the modification to conditional approval of definitive subdivision plan for West Park Drive extension. Do I need to read the rest of that? Yeah. Okay. Approve with conditions herein in the modified definitive subdivision plan entitled Definitive Plan West Park Drive Extension in Westborough, Massachusetts, dated 11/19/2020, with revisions through 5/12/2022, consisting of 37 plan sheets. So making a motion to approve the.
We had a draft.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You gotta strike out 10.
Yeah, the draft motion,
Strike
I think,
that.
works best, so.
Okay.
Jim, thank you.
Right.
I move the planning board approve the modification of the West Park Drive Extension definitive subdivision plan as written in the decision dated June 7th, 2022, with edits and additions made at tonight's meeting.
Second.
Maybe specifically, shouldn't we cite specifically, I mean, the only change really is to delete the proposed paragraph 10.
No, I think the motion's.
You think
motion
that's
covers
clear
it.
enough, Jim?
We were clear with.
Without that?
John seconded.
Yep. Any further discussion of the motion?
Just as a point of clarification to answer Hazel, so the modifications are referenced in the minutes. Edits and additions this evening, and those were discussed in the minutes.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? That's 4-1 in favor. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda, why don't we move to no, I'm going to skip past the public hearings that are going to be continued and go to Village Commons, which is, I believe, Shammy.
Shammy's here.
Yeah, Shammy, just come up and name for the record and get to the.
Good evening, board members. Shami Shamsuddin. How are you guys doing tonight?
I'm a little worked up, so.
I know, I just.
So don't make me mad, Shammy, because I'm already.
Yeah, Farouk couldn't, come tonight because he was tested positive last week, and we retest him over the weekend. He was still positive, so he's just staying home, And I guess Farouk sent an email to Kristen, and Mark, you're on that email, and Jim Robbins. Right. And he also sent an attachment to the construction schedule, landscaping schedule. Right. And, that email shows like the number of trees that were planted. And because of some cross-trenching electrical and stuff, we still couldn't finish it. There's 2 trees that needs to be planted, and we got to order like 5 more trees. And we are proceeding with. Sorry.
A little too close.
Too loud.
Yeah.
So we're still working with, walkways and stuff over there. And after we are done with the walkways, we're going to plant the rest of the trees. That's what the plan is.
All right. So we did get a construction schedule and a landscape schedule. Did you all see both of those?
No, I saw the landscape, but not. Did they come at the same time?
No.
Mr. Chair?
It's in the same.
No, there were 2 separate emails, I think.
Dropbox, there's
Yeah,
a.
they're both in the Dropbox.
Good now.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the first one we got was exactly the same as, it didn't look like a construction schedule to me, and then finally we got a second one that looked more like a construction schedule. There's a lot of concern from the Design Review Board as to whether this is actually going to work. And we had a lot of questions. I've gone out and looked at it. I went out a couple of weeks ago. I know that Jim went out and is concerned about the watering that's being done at this point, or lack of watering. The way they're doing this at this point, looking at the construction schedule, the underplantings and the rest of the trees were getting later and later into the planting season. And unless there really is a concerted effort to make sure these things, these plants are watered every single day and that they have a well around them with water in them, they're not going to survive. And I'm really concerned about this because I have to say, Shammy, when I looked at the topsoil that you put in there and what is there is, I wouldn't have planted anything in my yard in that kind of topsoil. If you just take a look at it, I am really concerned about these trees living. And I know Jim was out there this week looking again.
I was out there yesterday. Yep. Yeah, when I was out there yesterday, the soil was bone dry. The leaves look wilted. Usually when a tree is stressed, the leaves turn inside out. And that's the way they were yesterday. And the soil was bone dry. It was just before noon yesterday that I was out there. The burlap was untied and laid around the top of the root ball.
I was also there this weekend, and it was dry as well. The plants aren't really taking.
Your landscape architect suggested that you water them 1 inch of water twice a day. And really the best way to do that is to put the watering bags around the base of the tree, because you can fill that up with the water and walk away. And that's really the best thing. And I'm sure your landscape architect would recommend that.
I don't think we need you in here to give you lessons on how to water plants. I'm just tired of having you in here for things that aren't getting done right. Okay, so I just need you guys to get your act together and get it done right. Because every time I turn around, last night we got another email with concerns about flooding in the units. I mean, these are brand new units. People should not have flooding. That needs to be fixed, whether it's regrading, patio solutions, I don't know. French drains, I'm not the expert, but if you guys aren't experts on this, find somebody who is, get it done right, and in the case of the landscaping, find somebody who knows what they're doing and make sure these trees survive and the rest of the landscaping is installed properly. That's really all I need to say on that. I don't need to spend time talking about watering bags. I mean, that's not our job. All right, next. Anyone else have comments? Sorry, you can tell it's going to be a good night.
It's fine, you're fine. It's totally fine.
Shammy, I think the problem is that you've been in again and again and again and again. And each time you come in, there's something that hasn't been done. And, I know the design review board and I know the planning board we're getting tired of this. Because, this project has been going on, and the number of hearings, if we looked at the number of times that we've had to discuss this over the time that we've had this project in front of us, it's more, I would say, than any other project that I have dealt with over the time I've been on this planning board. And there's absolutely no reason for it. And we've had other projects that are a lot larger than your project that we seem to be able to move through the planning board, get the things done as we're supposed to. And this just does not seem to be working with this. And it really concerns me that things are not moving the way they're supposed to be. We want this project done. We want it off our planning board desk, finished. And it's dragging on much too long because of all the different holdups that we've had. I think that's my bottom line at this point.
I'll make a comment for the record, and I know Mr. Ansari couldn't be here because of his illness, and so my remarks aren't directed to you, but for the record, the document submitted as construction schedule when we saw it last year, it's not a construction schedule. It's a list in one column of various kinds of activities at different levels, different kinds of deliverables, and then expected completion date. That's it. And, reflecting on this being delivered now this number of months later, when it was a condition of the approval initially that a construction schedule be submitted and then maintained, is really a reflection on Mr. Ansari, far more than our demands on this board. It's no surprise that nothing is getting done on time because there's no plan to do so. I was just going to ask, John has some, expertise in this area. How would you describe this document?
A simple Excel spreadsheet. At that, usually a construction schedule, you have at least some logos or something on here that, it's something that anyone could have just typed up, so.
But I mean, a Gantt chart?
Yeah.
And critical path and what needs to be done.
Yeah, a lot of times you'd see something on here showing the timeline, whether it's, 2 months, 3 months of completion on here. You're just,
He just updates target completion dates. Every time we see this, it has to take him less than 60 seconds. It's a joke.
It's a moving target.
Yeah,
None of the proposed completion dates are rarely met, and even if they are met, they're not really completed because there's, punch list items and things that aren't done, so that, even if it's done, it's really only 90% done, and the 10% never gets done, and I'm not even sure it's done right.
Could not operate on this basis and expect to get things accomplished. So this board is not, really able for this work to get done.
Right. So what are we hoping to get accomplished?
Is there any recourse?
Well, that's a question for Jim. What kind
So
of?
I had asked the developer to provide an estimated, and I have not received that. That was supposed to be done by your landscape architect, and I've received nothing from your landscape architect either. So that was what this board was expecting to see this evening, because if those trees die, and if you wait probably another week to install your landscaping, you're going to be looking at September to October, because you can't really do anything July, mid-June through the beginning of September. You really should not be doing any landscape installation. So you're already now probably 6 months behind what you had promised the board back in March. So that at that time we were promised that we were going to make this growing season, that everything would be installed. Farouk to please provide us a plan and to meet that schedule so that planting could have been done by June 1st. That was the completion date, June 1, complete. And right now you barely got your trees in before June 1. The remainder of the landscaping and the walkways are not even begun. So you've missed the spring growing season.
So, Jim, the question, though, is really what recourse do we have? Like, can we call in a portion of the bond to get it done? Or, I mean, how does...
You can, but my intention was to give Mr. Ansari an opportunity to separate the landscaping.
Yeah, but we've given him a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, I know. I'm telling you, that was my intention.
And,
he didn't deliver. So,
and some of the complaints we're getting aren't related to landscaping, or maybe to grading, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But all right.
My recollection was the last discussion we had was to allow him some time to install the landscaping, in response to the abutters' complaints about drainage, and giving an acknowledgement of the seasonality to it, and that once the work was done, it might solve some of the drainage issues. That was my recollection. Now that the landscaping's not done, the abutter complaints are still coming in, and we've lost another 6-8 months.
I honestly feel like we're having the same conversation we had 6 months ago. And I don't really like not feeling like we accomplished nothing. I mean,
yeah, we need to figure out some action to take. No.
So what happens if they don't hit these dates that they were supposed
Can
to?
we bond the landscaping?
well, let's see, the entire project is bonded by the security bond right now. You'd have to break out the landscaping. That's why I asked it for an estimate of the landscaping. And then the board could hold a public hearing and take the security value, because that's our right, is to take that money, which will affect Farouk's bond rating.
All right, so let's move forward with the idea that we're not going to get an estimate on the landscaping, because it doesn't seem like we've gotten that yet. So who can give us a reasonable amount for the landscaping that we can then move forward with that?
If you choose to do that, we could hire a consultant, because the decision allows us to hire consultants, similar to what you had with the drainage issue earlier. And they would have to pay for that consultant, and he would establish a bond. Then you would hold a public hearing. You would secure that bond and hire somebody to install the landscaping. But you obviously are going to do that in the fall. You're not going to do that now either.
So who would pay the consultant?
He has to pay the consultant.
All right.
This is really throwing good money after bad, Chammy. I know that you can't fix it now, but I mean, it's kind of an insult to have to pay for an outside consultant to give a bond value, and then the board takes that bond value and you pay for that consultant. It's rubbing salt in the wound. You should have had your consultant do the bond value and do a plan for the landscaping and stick to it.
As Mr. Ansari was requested to do.
Mm-hmm.
Not.
Well, all right, this schedule says that the landscaping and birch trees will be done by the end of the month.
Yeah, but we've already, unless those trees are taken care of now, and I mean, putting birch trees in at the end of June is a huge mistake. I mean, the chances that they're going to live over the summer are almost non-existent. And I would prefer to see us get a consultant at this point and find out, I mean, Farouk had a landscaper. And I gathered that he's not been involved in the planting and the taking care of things. Is that correct?
He usually directs the people to do it, Larry Green.
Yeah, but you told me that you were directing your people to do it.
No, Larry is the one who was initially involved, and he was talking to the people who are planting it. And
well, it didn't look, yeah, but it didn't look to me like, all right, I'll let that go. I mean, I think that the person you had, I know, was a reputable landscaper, and
yes,
I'm just a little surprised that what we have out there now actually overseeing this project. It just does not look like that's what was happening. But I would be prepared, and I would like to see us move forward with a public hearing and getting a consultant and getting this done. I mean, it's just...
Yeah, so I think the time is against us a little bit, because even if we go that route, we're going to have lost the season.
Right. We're going to lose the season no matter what.
So I think maybe we should put maybe a 30-day, we're going to start that process in 30 days if those trees are not showing signs. I mean, I don't know what the solution is, but...
I think Hazel proposed it well, that we just go with a consultant. I mean, it sounds like, I haven't seen this project before, but it sounds like you gave them ample opportunity. So, I don't know how many more.
I think the first thing is we need to find out the cost. I mean, I think that's step number one is, by our next meeting, we need to know what the cost is going to be to take care of that entire landscaping as it is on the site plan, the way it was supposed to be done, which also includes the sidewalks and the stamping. I mean, it's not just the trees. There is shrubs that were supposed to go in there, plus the sidewalk was supposed to be completed. And I want to know exactly the cost of all that work, and then we can think about how we might deal with a bond on something like that.
So my suggestion or idea, Mr. Chair, and you guys know the process, can we ask Mr. Ansari to have the landscape contractor appear at the next meeting to provide that information? you know, not, you mentioned this was a reputable landscaper. I think if Mr. Ansari cannot provide an accredited landscaper to appear before the board who's, you know, delivering the services on this project and can answer the board's questions, you know, about that project plan, including as comprehensive as you described it, Hazel.
And what the cost is going to be.
And what the costs are going to be. And that's only an information. Like you said, we're out of the growing season now. So, you know, in lieu of, you know, under the threat of, you know, now we're going to move to real punitive measures that don't feel good to anybody, but that are our responsibility to get completion. So in lieu of that, if there is a professional landscaper truly engaged in the project, I'd like to hear that company's representative, you know, join Mr. Ansari here, provide the budget and the breakdown and the schedule.
Well, so our next meeting is not till June 28th. According to this schedule, the trees will be in by then, the landscaping will be done by then.
Says the 16th.
Right. So it should all be done, and we should have at least some idea of whether those trees are going to be successful by then. So
by the 28th.
By the 28th. So, I mean, and to be honest with you, even if we have somebody in and then we start reopen the hearing and call, you know, create a bond, we're not going to be able to plant anything till next spring. So maybe we look at, you know, I don't.
Planting can be done in the fall.
Right, you plant in the fall.
I'm just looking for.
So Jim, what do you think? Should we have the landscape
source of expertise,
the landscaper in if they'll come? I mean, they don't.
So our next meeting is June 28th. Your landscaper is Larry Green. He's a reputable landscaper. Right. We know him. If he would come to our meeting on the 28th, can you authorize Mr. Green to call me tomorrow?
Okay.
So I'm going to hear from Mr. Green tomorrow.
I'll call him tomorrow. I'll have him give you a call.
He's going to call me tomorrow. Okay. So at that time, I will talk to him whether or not he thinks those trees could survive the summer if they were planted by June 16th. I should say landscape material, not the trees. The trees are already planted. Because, again, please make this very clear to Farouk. If we take his bond, it's going to cost you more money than to pay Larry Green because we have to bid the project. And we have to pay prevailing wage. The laws governing a public project are much different than a private project. And it's going to be your money. So we're going to take your money to pay someone else twice what you would have paid them, same person.
I understand.
There's another factor too. If we take the bond, it's going to be that much harder and more expensive to get another bond. You know, I don't know the impact of calling in a bond, but I imagine that you know, is going to make it harder and more expensive for him to get another.
And just note that it's not just the trees that are there. He has more trees that were supposed to be planted. So it isn't just the trees that were there. We're talking about the fact that he was putting more trees in. And this is not the time of year that you try to put more trees in. So, you know, as far as talking to Larry, and I know he's a good landscaper, you know, I mean, I really want to know what the chances are that these are going to survive. I mean, if you go out and look at the dirt that is being used out there, you'll,
all right, so
whatever.
Let's move forward with this
yeah.
course of action.
Right.
Jim will talk to the landscaper.
That's fine.
We'll have some idea of progress by the 28th. And if we don't have satisfactory progress on this, we're going to initiate the process of A, hiring a consultant if we don't have the amount, and B, reopening the public hearing, calling in the bond, and doing it ourselves in the fall.
Yep.
Everybody happy with that?
Yeah, now Larry, can we ask Larry for some figures or not? Can we not do that because?
Larry calls me tomorrow. I'm going to ask him several things, but I'm going to ask him about the health of the trees that are there now. Should new landscaping be planted this summer, or should we wait till the fall? What's the value of that landscaping plus the trees that have already been installed and the additional 5 or 6 trees that are to be planted in the second phase. All of those things. We want a bond estimate, okay, which means the cost of all that landscaping.
the landscape.
Both the materials and the installation. And I want Mr. Green to come in and talk to the board on the 28th.
Does that include the sidewalk also?
I'm sorry? Well, I want to hear from him if that's the right thing to do.
Right.
Because initially, when Mr. Green came to the Design Review Board, he told us that the landscaping could be installed first, and then the sidewalks done, and then the mulching done. Now I hear from Farouk that he wants to do the sidewalk first, and then install the landscaping. That's not what the landscaper told us. That's why I want to see the landscaper.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay? Okay.
All right, thank you, Shammy, for coming in. We'll
thank you.
hopefully make some progress on this by the 28th. Since we're on future meetings, I'd like to look at our schedule for July and August.
Thank you.
You'll
Thank you, Shammy.
You'll be on the beach somewhere.
No doubt.
We have a joint meeting scheduled on the 28th of this month with the Select Board, hopefully to appoint a replacement for Tim. Then the next scheduled meeting would be July 5th, which is obviously the day after the 4th and only a week later. Do we want to consider that schedule and pushing that back in July? And how do people feel about that?
I would,
We'll be away the week of the 11th.
You'll be away the week of the 11th?
I am away the week of the 4th, but I had to come back, I guess. I would come back.
Well, we have a lot in front of us, right? We still have Oak Street and Research Drive. I don't think we can go down to one meeting in July. Jim, how do you feel? Do you think we can go
Are you
down
asking me? Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you think we can go down to one
I
meeting in
thought we had
July?
another meeting this month other than the joint meeting.
No, you have
Well,
one
we're going to
meeting.
have a meeting in the 28th after the joint.
After the joint meeting,
Yeah.
okay, so
Correct.
that'll be a full meeting
Which is why
essentially.
I don't think we necessarily need to meet again on the 5th,
Yeah.
because it's only a week later.
Right.
But you do have, unless you clear up Spectrum and 25, 29 Research Drive at your next meeting, yeah, you're going to need the time in July, because you have those two projects in front of you, and you'll have other things that come in the interim, other smaller
We
things.
can't put it off to
Yeah,
19th.
but I suspect that 25, 29 Research needs to make a decision on their project before mid-July. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't ask the board to give them an indication on the 28th.
Right.
So-
Can we look just a little past July to August, because I know I'm on vacation in August, and
Yeah.
that might impact our decision on
Purchase and sale will be
July.
triggered.
You guys around all of August?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. John, you're around in August? Okay. So I'm away the first week in August, so I would prefer to do like the July 12th and 26th as meetings, to space them out. Then we'd basically be doing 2nd and 4th, and then push the August meeting to the 2nd week as well. I mean, I hate to rearrange our whole schedule for me, so I'm just concerned about quorum, though.
Just to keep in the back of your mind, for the week after Labor Day and the week after that, I know we're a couple months ahead, but I'm going to be away those 2 weeks in September. So the 2nd and 3rd week in September, I'll be away. So August could be important for you.
Well, I would be fine leaving it on the 5th and the 19th in July, but I'm going to have a problem on August 2nd. You guys will have to meet without me. I guess I could try to call in, but
And we're going to start receiving zoning articles in September. Probably, no, in August. In August, you're going to have zoning articles.
I wouldn't mind the two August meetings being the 12th and the 10th 2 weeks beyond that.
The August meetings? You
Yeah.
mean the 9th? So we have 5 Tuesdays in August, so I was hoping that we would move the August meetings to the 9th and the 23rd, which would be the 2nd and the 4th.
That's fine, that would work for me.
Yeah, it works for me.
It's July where I have a problem. As I said, I'm unreachable on the 11th.
Well, I
or the
think we're going to
12th.
have a problem on either the 5th or the 12th of July.
Okay. Whatever's
Could you,
at your
could
pleasure.
you zoom in on?
Yeah, I could definitely.
On the
zoom in.
5th?
Yeah, and I might even have to come back to town. Just keep them July 5th, it's fine.
And
You're
you can
gonna
be
be
here
here.
the
I'll be
5th.
here the
And
5th,
you-
yeah.
You can be here the 5th?
If I
All right.
have to, I'll-
So let's plan our schedule, Kristen, the 5th, the 19th, then we're going to take 2 weeks off and go to August 9th and 23rd. And then September 6th, you're away, Jim? The day after?
I leave actually Labor Day, so I'll be away that week and the next week. So I think Labor Day is the 7th or the 5th? The
So do
5th.
we want to tentatively do another meeting in August on the 30th, just in case?
In case you need it.
Well, I mean,
You may not need it.
we can have a meeting without you, but I don't want to meet without you.
I think it would be important, I'm thinking about the fact that if we're going to do any zoning articles, we really need to look at them in August, and so consequently, a third meeting in August makes sense.
Right.
Just because of the town meeting coming up in October, and
All right.
we want to make sure that
So let's,
we get our things in order prior to that time.
so let's plan a meeting on August 30th as well.
Okay.
We'll, I guess, leave the September meetings alone for now, but we may end up canceling the 6th, given 3 meetings in August and the fact that Jim is away, and just doing hopefully just doing one meeting in September on the 20th. All right?
September 20.
And we'll have a better idea in August of whether we need to do another meeting in September, so we can postpone that decision. All right? So everybody's straight, July 5th, July 19th, August 9th, August 23rd, August 30th. Kristen, I got to be honest, I miss when you send out invites.
And we didn't get an invite this month.
I like the invitations.
Yeah.
In fact, I like.
I do too, because it checks up on my,
Yeah, it shows up on my calendar for me.
calendar.
And it has the agenda in it. So
reminds me. Yeah.
I'm making more work for you,
And I
Kristen.
know who's coming.
We're keeping this September 6th.
We're going to leave September alone, but I think in August we might revisit that because the 6th, Jim is away, and the 13th, he's away. So we may end up just canceling one of those meetings. I think for me, it doesn't matter, I'll be back, but if we do have 2 meetings in September, I would suggest we probably do the 13th and the 20th. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully, we don't have to do 2 meetings in September. I really don't want to meet without Jim. All right. Let's get back to the agenda. If I can find it, I had a paper copy, that would probably be easier. There we go. All right, we had a public hearing for special permit application on 22 South Street. That applicant wishes to withdraw his application without prejudice. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay, we just need a motion to that effect to allow him to do that.
Hold on one second.
Or motion.
Wait, 1 second, Jim needs this.
So please, for the record, note that you received a letter from Spiro Kelly. You have that letter in your package. Please read the letter into the record before you take any action.
Do you have it, Mark? I have a copy here.
Yeah, Hazel, go ahead then, because I don't have it in front of me.
To the Westborough Planning Board, In regards to my special permit request for 22 South Street, I kindly request a withdrawal without prejudice to my application at this time and respectfully request the reimbursement of my application fee. I'm sorry not to be able to attend in person at the time for my request. Signed, Spiro Kelly, 22 South Street.
I'll second.
That's not a motion yet. It was just reading a letter into the
Oh, I
record.
thought that was, okay, I'm losing it.
It's all right. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept that letter into the record.
No, we just have to approve his request for the withdrawal of the
Special permit.
So I'll make a
special
motion
permit
to
without
approve.
prejudice.
Let me do this. I'll make a motion to approve the withdrawal of the 22 South Street special permit application without prejudice by the board.
Second.
I heard Peter second. Any discussion? Is that motion adequate? Okay.
I'm going to ask you to take up the fee separately.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor of that motion? That's 5-0. I'll make a motion to refund the application fee for 22 South Street.
How much is it?
$2,000.
Oh,
I'll second that.
Any discussion of that? All those in favor, that's 5-0. All those opposed? No, I shouldn't say that. I should say that before. I saw 5 hands in approval of that. So next item on the agenda is a public hearing, continuation of the public hearing and decision, continuation of the public hearing for site plan review application 2529 Research Drive. We also had a request for a continuation on that. I have a letter from the applicant dated June 6th that I'll read into the record. To the members of the planning board, in accordance with our agreement at the last public hearing on this matter, on behalf of the applicant, I respectfully request that the public hearing be continued until the planning board meeting on June 28th, 2022. I would appreciate you placing this matter at or near the end of the agenda. That's an unusual request. Normally they want to be at the beginning. Very truly yours, Marshall Gould. He is the attorney for the applicant. Any questions on that? Do we have to recognize the public on a continuation?
No.
can we get an update, or is that, we have to wait until we
If
get the
you're going to
update till
continue the
they?
hearing, if you're going to continue the hearing, you should do it without any comment or any additional information because the applicant is not here.
Okay.
So he's requested a continuation to the 28th, and you have a motion in front of you.
So I move that the planning board continue the public hearing for the site plan review application of 25 to 29 Research Drive to Tuesday, June 28th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. as requested by the applicant.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion of that motion? All those in favor? That's 5 in favor with none opposed. To continue that hearing. Next item on the agenda is continuation of the public hearing for site plan review at 151-155 Oak Street. A request for continuation, and I will read that into the record, dated Monday, June 6th, and it's from Mark Donahue, who is attorney for the applicant. With uncertainty still existing as to the scope of off-site improvements and the impact same would have to the project and project budget, Spectrum would ask to continue the site plan approval hearing to June 28th. If you have a particular form you want completed by the applicant, please send it along or let me know if you need anything further to achieve the continuation. Any questions? Do we have a motion?
So I'll move that the planning board continue the public hearing for the site plan review application of Spectrum Health at 151 to 155 Oak Street to Tuesday, June 28, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. as requested by the applicant.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor? That's 5 in favor with none opposed to approve that continuation. Next item on the agenda, which is the most exciting item, as far as I'm concerned, is the Master Plan Implementation Committee, discussion of committee composition and appointment of members.
Could I just raise a question on that?
Sure.
Okay. I don't think from what I've seen, we've done really any advertising as to this committee being set up and possible members. And I would like to take the approach, or I'd like to see the planning board take the approach that we open up this membership and see what kind of people we have that are interested in joining this before we make a firm decision on how many people we'd like to have on the advisory committee, and look at the makeup and then try to match the makeup with some town employees and town board members. But I have seen no information that asks for members of the town who would be interested in joining this committee to contact the planning board with their interest. So I'm really, myself, not prepared to do any appointing until I think that we've gotten some information out to the community.
Yeah, Hazel, I don't anticipate appointing anybody tonight. What I really want to do is try and decide how, I was hoping to get a handle on how big we wanted to make the committee and how to go about asking for volunteers for the committee.
I'd like to go the other way around and open it up, see what kind of interest we get from the community, then make the decision on the number of people. I mean, if we get 3 members from the community that wish to go, we'll go one way. But I would like to wait and make the decision, based on what kind of interest we have from the community before we make a decision on the size of the, whatever we're looking at, implementation.
Yeah, my fear, though, is that we're going to end up with another 35-person committee, and I don't think that's...
No, yeah, but we don't have to, because what I'm saying is that then we can make decisions based on the kind of people we would, or the people we feel would be representative on the committee.
So I had thought about it a little differently. And
That's okay.
Oh, no, I mean, again, and I want to propose one way of doing this and see what your thoughts were. We had 9 chapters in the master plan, and I would propose that we consider a 9-person committee and put a call out to not just committees such as the select board, but a call out to all residents who wish to volunteer to serve on the committee to represent one of those chapters. And then if we had 20 applicants wanting to represent the town on the housing chapter, we would have to pick one. And if we had 1 applicant who wanted to represent the town on the cultural, natural, and historic, well, we'd only pick 1, right? So, just one way of looking at it, maybe we want to add some composition to that, saying, okay, well, on top of those 9, we're going to have, 1 planning board and 1 select board, but I just don't want the committee to be too unwieldy.
Yeah.
But it's just one way of doing it, I'm just suggesting that, rather than saying, oh, we're going to pick 1 person from the Affordable Housing Trust, why don't we put out a call to everybody and say, who wants to represent the town on the Master Plan Implementation Committee under the housing subcategory?
Yeah, but at the same time, I think, we also need to look for people that have a broad view, not someone that comes in to sit on this committee representing a particular interest. So that, to me, is an important thing about the master plan, is that we need we need people that can look at the town as a whole. And I really, the thing I don't want are people that come in with an agenda. And, if you ask people to represent specific areas, then I think we may end up with people that are coming in with a particular agenda, and I would like to see a broader viewpoint of people.
No, I agree with that, but I also think it's important to have areas of expertise. I mean,
Well, I agree with you on that.
Just a filtering. So this is, the statement is that the charter and mission of this, I would wonder if we all went away for 5 minutes and wrote down what we think the charter and mission of this committee is and came back and read it to each other, how much consensus there would be. I tried to press Donnie on this topic when we were talking about it. So this is only to say, I think that this board should be very clear about the mission of this implementation committee. As I just can't believe I didn't think about it last. Is it an appointed town board and committee? Is it subject to open meeting law? How long will people serve?
Yes.
Will there be terms of service? You know, so if it's yes, yes, that's just the hygienics, right, or the logistics. Having watched the master plan, been very impressed with it, incredibly impressed with the work product. I strongly believe that the charter of this particular committee needs to be one that is articulated by all of you. I won't be here to put the content into it, but what I heard from Donnie when I pressed him was oversight. So by that, I mean, it's clear to me, having worked in town government now, you know, the DPW, the fire, you know, all the town departments, conservation, they have like their work and their mission that's underway. And my concern is that the strategic direction provided in the master plan gets lost in the day-to-day. And I'll give an example. The capital acquisitions process, the budget process. I stood in for Jim Peters going to serve. Incredibly illuminating that town management has asked for a 5-year forecast from each of those departments now that forces them to look at major capital improvement over that time. I want someone sitting in that committee with master plan implementation head about them, not with a particular dogma or an agenda, but who is able to have the perspective on the master plan to listen to the tactical day-to-day mission within these departments and say, you know, wait a minute, I think you're over-investing in this, or you're missing this opportunity, or how does this initiative best reflect this principle or this project, this goal in the master plan? And my worry is that, you know, with people just coming on and getting invited, it could be like reworking the master plan again, where the master plan lays it out. That work is done. So I think the charter is oversight, and how do we ensure that this, you know, and it's a tough one because it's ongoing, right? It's not like you can meet once or 11 times and be done. So I'm just feeling you should articulate the charter for potential applicants and say, we're seeking.
Yeah, so I was under the impression that Donnie said that the committee itself would form its mission.
I was too, and I was disturbed by that because I think this is I think the planning board has the charter and responsibility to implement the master plan. The master plan implementation committee is not a self-designed major. It's got a particular scope and charter. It would be, if I was serving on the board, I would insist that it did, because otherwise I'm afraid it could be at risk of being ineffective, you know? Whereas I think if people are asked to volunteer to actually engage in a process, something more specific, they're more keen to the task. I may be wrong about that.
I think you raise a good point, Tim. I think we really need to create, as a board, we need to define the mission of that committee so that when we put out a call for people to serve on that committee, they understand what they're getting in for.
Yeah.
I'm getting impatient.
Okay, I can tell.
Right? Like I want to get this committee going.
Yeah.
But I want to do it right. And I think you raise a good point. So
I don't think the charter has to be perfect.
My frustration is that I feel like we could have made these decisions sooner. And now that, they're coming up, I want to get it done.
Okay.
So
I would like to know the pool of people who are actually interested to be a part of this process, and because you need motivated people to take this to the next level. And I think if we should also see who were, the 34 people that were involved putting the plan together, if any of those people would be in knowledge and they can kind of drive that group in the right direction because they've already been through the process, and that will keep people online. But I do like the idea of having expertise on the board. I was thinking a 12 to 16 person board. I felt like that's probably a reasonable amount. You said 34 was too many. And based on the towns that we heard, it seemed like, that seemed like a good range of people. If you wanted to assign 9 people for the 9 topics and then have the other 6 oversee that or aid those other 9, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, I understand Hazel's point about an agenda, but I think, I want to end up with balance, so that each of those 9 chapters has somebody who has a good handle on which committees will be responsible for housing and the, implementing the goals that were outlined in the master plan regarding housing.
And be available to go to the housing meetings.
Well, right.
And then report back to the will people be able to participate in the other town
But
meetings?
in the same respect, there's 3 different the housing trust, the partnership, and the authority. I don't want 3 people on the implementation plan just for housing, because then we're going to end up with every committee in Westborough is going to, and there's so many committees in Westborough.
But if you served an oversight role, then you could I'm not suggesting 1 from each, but just take housing.
Right.
That quote unquote designee on the implementation committee could go and consume the other public meetings where this is happening and report back.
So I guess to kind of combine our thoughts, maybe we can just put out, first of all, I think we should hash out a mission statement. And if we can do it tonight, then great. But if not, maybe we can get a suggestion from Donnie as to what our mission statement should be, and then we can discuss it.
Let's get a suggestion from Donnie.
But I would say that once we have the mission statement, we put out a call to everybody, citizens, school aid, students, everybody, and say, do you want to serve on this plan? And then we pick a balance of representatives for each of those chapters based upon the people who apply. We may get 5 or 6 applicants who have housing expertise, and we may decide, okay, we're going to pick that person, or we may pick 2 of them because somebody may have housing and sustainable Westborough expertise, and we may get 2 for 1. But we, that's going to we're not going to know until we have letters of interest from people. Exactly. And then we can go weed through and say, okay, we're going to balance this committee with, all of the sections or chapters, and we're going to end up with a committee that has expertise in all of those, virtually every aspect of town. But I do think the mission statement needs to come forward.
Well, I'd reinforce your bias for action. And my concern, I'd like to know more about what Donnie was meaning by that, but I would say that puts you another 6 months out from doing that meaningful work, is if you try to gather all those people up and ask them what their job should be. It will be better served if you guys provide a mission and bring them together and then let them design work.
I 100% we need to have
it's too broad.
We need to have the mission statement in our call for participants.
And an elevator pitch that you guys can give.
We need to be able to say, the planning board is seeking willing volunteers to serve on the master plan implementation committee. The goal of the the mission statement of the master plan implementation, can we call it MPIC?
Yeah.
Well, the mission statement will be X. If you have any interest in serving on this committee, please send a letter of interest to Kristen, and
Do these have to be appointed by the town board, or does the planning committee appoint?
I'm sorry.
We'll appoint this committee.
Planning board
appoints the committee.
Okay. Makes it easier.
So I think that's the best way to do it. Honestly, don't think, I think we should get a suggestion from Donnie on the mission statement. His expertise will,
Yeah.
from the consultant. Donnie is our consultant for anybody who doesn't know. So I hate to say it, we need to put this off till the 28th.
Yeah, Mark, the thing is that we have to remember, don't forget, we couldn't get a consultant until we had the town meeting to fund the consultant.
Which was 3
So,
months ago.
Yeah, I mean, we have been working through this. I mean, I know we're behind.
If you don't know
but I
me
think
at
it's a
all, you know
problem.
I'm impatient.
I know it.
right?
He's a
but
little
there's
impatient
some-
today.
Yeah,
Well, the other track, I mean, I'm going to throw this out there for the record, is having the town manager or assistant town manager come before the board and describe how they would like to operationalize the master plan and the projects in it. I mean, I think that town management, including the community development director, who seems to me would be at the center of helping to implement this, but it's incumbent on them to describe how, like, in other words, the implementation of the master plan shouldn't wait for the master plan implementation committee.
well, there are things being done which are part of the master plan.
Right.
I mean, if you go back and look at the goals now, I think in implementation, we will find that there are a number of things that have already started and that things are beginning to work through. So I don't think we can look at the master plan at the moment and say, it's sitting there and nobody's done anything.
Well, that's my point.
Because
It
I don't
isn't
think
true.
that's true.
Yeah, but
No, it's not
so
true.
that raises a little bit of a different question as to whether the committee will solely be citizens, or will it also be, will the town manager be a voting member of the committee?
I was thinking
Or
about
the
that.
town planner be
Yeah.
voting?
I was thinking maybe that this might be a time to use the assistant town manager.
Well, I
as a-
personally prefer to say the town manager or a representative.
Right, but
so
I,
that she can defer.
because I don't think we perhaps have used her. I mean, I would like to see, she's very capable and she's got a lot of information, and I would like to see her used in that position. I mean, my feeling was that thinking about this, I thought to myself, really quite frankly, that Christie's got so much on her plate. I would really love to see the assistant
Kim,
town manager, Kim, involved in this.
So I want to clarify my point. That person, I was asking them to testify sooner rather than later or come before the board. They may or may not be suitable. What I'm interested in is, let's
Right.
take Kim, the assistant town manager. She has some broad experience. We're putting together a master plan implementation committee. She runs a lot of HR issues. What are important things for us to consider in appointing people? What are, things to do in the process? And how is the master plan, how is the strategy expressed in it being used today by the heads of the departments? I think that you can get that information at the same time, and it will serve the committee. And then you may choose also to, based on that testimony, you may say, well, this is a good person to lead it, or to be on, can we get her, or other kinds of volunteers. So I'm saying they're more providing some information about how, if there wasn't a master plan implementation committee, what would the town do right now with the master plan?
My feeling was that by using somebody like the assistant town manager, I don't want to see a lot of town employees on this committee. So my feeling was that the assistant town manager could be the link to the departments in the town, and that's the way to use that kind of thing, which for one thing puts it's an efficient and effective way to deal with the town.
Right, but I think we can solve that with, we're going to appoint the town manager or a representative. And if she wants to defer it to the assistant town manager, she can. And same with the school department. I think we need a representative from either the school committee or the administration, because they kind of sit out.
Yeah, by themselves, yeah.
And, and then you're right, though. I don't want, DPW, fire, police. I mean, believe me, I want to hear what they have to say.
Right, but I don't.
But I don't want that many members.
No, and I want to be clear. That wasn't my suggestion. My suggestion is that they implement the plan every day when they come to work, or don't implement the plan to one degree or another, and they probably have a bulk of work that has nothing to do with the plan. But how the master plan has the greatest influence on town government to a degree depends on the degree of oversight in terms of their strategy and direction. I don't know how to crack that egg, but I know that that's true. And the team that helps drive that, you know, the more Kim Foster or somebody else can help, as Hazel described, you know, be the liaison or, you know, the bridge into that world, then the implementation committee can not sit back, but you know what I mean? Provide the kind of oversight and direction and steering that directs those resources in the appropriate way. I hopefully have made the point. I'll leave it at that.
So I think really what we need to do is come up with that mission statement for the 28th.
Yep.
At that point, we'll be able to put a call out for any interested parties. We'll, you know, maybe we can figure out exactly how we're going to distribute that or, you know, advertise that. Because I would rather have, you know, 200 people and have us have to sift through and come up with a balance. Like,
right.
We're going to have a tremendous responsibility to come up with a balanced committee that represents not just the areas of expertise that are in there, but young,
the community
old,
as a whole, makeup,
different ethnicities, different, you know, I don't even know what considerations I haven't probably even thought of, but we need to have a balanced committee that represents everybody. As best as we can create that. And if it means a bigger committee, then I'll live with it. But I'm hoping to, you know, not compromise efficiency for the sake of another, you know, everybody wants a seat at the table.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, this is when you use subcommittees. I mean, that's, you know, I mean, this really, we're really looking to set up an oversight committee, essentially is what we're looking to set up. And under that, there can be any number of subcommittees or people that have been designated to set up subcommittees. So there are many ways to work that down. And I think that, you know, what we're looking for is, yes, the mission statement, but I do feel it's an oversight committee. To me, it's not a committee that's going to be out there going to housing committee meetings. No, we're not doing that.
I was just going to mention something. You talked about the school department, and I don't want to dig into how the master plan influences them, but we made a change on Sustainable Westborough in their charter to have 2 associate members from the high school, you know, join in committee meetings. And I can tell you it's provided again, that's a different topic, a committee with a different mission, and I don't know that it would be appropriate, but I can tell you that we've got more applications for the 2 slots now than we had before, and the 2 young women who are participating now help to drive a huge amount of effort at the energy fair and who are adding value in another way, because the school community's like its own culture, kind of like it's, you know, there's some barriers there, and
I think
the students, you know, are good at getting in.
But I would argue too that the senior community in this town is also its own, you know,
got its own little bailiwick.
Absolutely,
no question about it.
So a senior member.
So when I talk about balance, I talk about this board is going to be responsible for making sure that implementation committee has a balance. And I don't want to necessarily say, well, we're going to devote 1 seat to a student, right?
No, I was building on what Hazel said,
when
subcommittees and other people, if you will.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's how you control it.
When we're weeding through all of the letters of interest, that we factor in, well, okay, we've got a student here who's got some expertise in this area, and we've got a senior citizen here who's also got some experience, and try and create a balance with as best we can. So.
Right. So I think at this point we need to get a mission statement or get some sort of a statement from Donnie, given that. We also were looking for him, I thought, to give us some idea on the makeup on other committees in other towns that we were waiting for to see what kind of a makeup they had on that.
Yeah, did you see my email that I sent to him last week? I haven't heard from Don.
Oh, okay. And then
Made
also,
that pretty clear.
yeah, and also to, I have one thought that just obviously went out of my mind, but, so if we can, and we've got to think about terms. You know, I mean, we were asking people to serve for staggered 2-year terms, staggered 3-year terms. So all those pieces, because once you send out an announcement saying we want people to, you know, apply for this, they need to know what the commitment's going to be. Is it going to meet once a month? Is it going to meet twice a month? They need to know what the commitment is going to be before they reasonably can apply for this.
Okay. All right, so I think those are good points. Time commitment, mission statement, and, you know, and then we can get something out. You'll reach out to Donnie again?
All right.
All right, we have, next, we have minutes.
Yeah, I had some minor editing corrections I gave to Kristen, not substantive.
All right, well, do you want to handle the minutes, Hazel?
Yeah. All right, could I have a motion to approve the minutes of, what were they, May 3rd, with minor editing corrections?
I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you, Kristen, again, for an excellent job. Done. Would you like a motion to adjourn, Mike? Mark?
Please.
Time for me to go home.
Let Tim do it.
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Tim's last official act was to
Last
close
official
the
act to
meeting.
close the meeting.
Thank God.
We're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Now I have to go play the soccer game.